Part 86. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 854. For more than 2 months when Yekong went home to worship his ancestors, the major cults of the immortals in Kangnan were not idle. The factions first learned that someone had returned and brought back a powerful mysterious man in black. And as soon as Yekong came back, he utterly killed Hai Tianzong, and the 4 UN infants were easily handled. The most terrible thing was that the man in black actually let the master monk in the late period of Yuanying fall, and those Highgate Yuanying stupidly couldn't help whispering, and quickly changed their plans one by one. However, the plan could not keep up with the changes. Within a few days, the news came again, saying that the man in black turned out to be a monk of the Mahayana period. All the Highgates were frightened, and the Mahayana period of the Great Circle man, how arrogant it was, no wonder it was so easy to destroy the Yuan dynasty. Looking down, everyone was relieved that the Mahayana monk would soon rise. There was no fear, he was leaving soon, and there was nothing to worry about. Zhongai Yuaning's mind was alive again. On this day, a young boy in Xianxia took the hand of a young girl and walked into the small town of Wanzhou in Huangzhou. The little girl was Deu, who was renamed Long Linger. She didn't want to stay in the spirit beast circle or in the Pipa beads, so Yekong took her with her. In fact, Huang Quan's ancestor did not want to stay in the Pipa beads, but this guy actually said that he felt he was about to break through, so he had to go to the Pipa beads to build the foundation. The two walked along the road, and came to Wanjiaolofu house a short while later. The 2 guards at the door saw Yekong's cultivation and saluted, "Senior, I don't know what's the matter, please ask for instructions." Yekongdeo said, "Below is an old friend of Jinkin's ancestors. I passed by Wanjia city this time and come to see you." The guard replied, "Senior, then the ancestors of Jingquan realized the breakthrough of Jianju in the battle against the dead Yin sect, so they closed the reincarnation after the battle. Until today, they have not yet exited." Not yet out of the gate, Yekong was a participant in the battle that year, and that was the beginning of his foundation. Now he has become a Dan. 6 years later, Jingquan has not yet come out. It takes many years to transform a baby. Yekong nodded. The guard said, "The real person Wanxian, who is the head of our Wanjia city, is at home. I wonder if the predecessors will know anything about it?" "Wanxian? Of course, I'm looking for him, so I said Yekong is here." Yekong said this, and the 2 elder brothers at the gate were stunned. This is Yekong who came to Kangbei alone, and returned with a Mahayana monk and man. Too young, idle. Yekong watched them staring at him, displeased, "Not yet." Then the elder brother remembered that someone still had elegance such as fanatics, gods of plague, and black hearts, and was so frightened that he rushed in and shouted, "The real person in charge is not good, Yekong is here." Wanxian was holding a small glass inside the house, watching an ancient book, and he couldn't hear the shouts outside, so he rushed out, "What's the matter?" "Yekong is here." "Yekong of Yuanyuanzone, the observant obituary." "Yekong is here," Wanxian Yuxi asked again, "Why can't you shout?" The goalkeeper was also scared by someone's name, "And now I want to come, there is no hit or grab, what's wrong?" Awkward, inexplicable, Wanxian cursed and went out to meet her. This is a season that has just arrived in spring and is still reluctant to leave in winter. The willows in the house have already cut green leaves. Through the branches of the willows, I saw a young boy in Xianxia standing in the sunlight outside the house with a young girl wearing a red jacket. The young Xianxia gown, showing no wealth, but showing natural pride, his eyebrows are clear, gentle, and elegant, but if you look carefully at the eyebrows, you have a proud and unruly look. At that time, he was in the foundation period, he had not practiced, and even he took the initiative to come to the door, he refused. But now, he is still building a base period, and he has become a senior of Jindan. This is the last thing I regret in my life. Wan Xian sighed in his heart, raised his hand, opened the willow branch and went out. Yedaiu, vaguely remember the meeting that day in the southern capital. I did not expect that today became the senior year, but for the loss of that day, please forgive me. Wan Xian came out and said a little awkwardly. Well, Wan Zhenren has been thinking too much. I never mean to blame. Ye Gong laughed and said, actually Wan Zhenren is right. With yes temper, how many baskets have these people saved, if of course Wan Zhenren really Mr. Ye came to Wanjia for fear that the chickens and dogs that Wanjia had been engaged in would be restless. Haha, this is true. The two laughed, and the embarrassing atmosphere was much less. Then Wan Xian really led Ye Kong into the door. Dao was very dissatisfied with someone who didn't introduce her at all, and hummed and walked in. When he came to the Wanjia hall, there was a spirit tea and fruit. Ye Kong then laughed. In fact, in addition to visiting Jinkin's ancestors this time, I also saw you old people and came to sue you. Wan Xian said in amazement, what is the crime? Ye Kong laughed, actually, I was chased and killed by each case last time. I used a pseudonym of Li Hiza to meet Wan Zhenren, but at that time I couldn't tell the truth because of the situation. I hope Wan Zhenren will not care about it. Wan Xian's real people had known about these situations. Wan Xian had some doubts about Ye Kong that day. Later, the news of Ye Kong's return from Kangbei was already full of enthusiasm. How could Wan Xian's real person be ignorant? But Wan Xian still pretended not to know, and smiled with a white beard, so it is. I said that Li Hiza was so familiar to me that day, it turned out to be really an old man. Wan Xian joked after saying, I don't care, but you should tell Lu Ying clearly. Lu Ying was the last time Ye Kong left in Wanjia town. This time I came to Wanjia. Seeing Lu Ying was also one of the goals. But unfortunately, Lu Ying has just built a base and has gone out to practice, not in the small town of Wanjia. Zuji real people go out to practice. This is a rule common to all sections. The training time ranges from 1 year to 10 years. Ye Kong has no choice but to leave a message and let Lu Ying remember to go to Yuan Zone to find him. Then Ye Kong pulled Dao away. After coming out, Dao pouted, it's so boring. Ling Xiaodan finished eating again, it's really not easy. Ye Kong laughed. Pouting girl, I'll take you to eat good food. Well, what's a good thing? Dao immediately became happy. Just know when you go. There are many mortal monks in the small town of Wanjia. There are many shops on both sides. This is more prosperous than the miners' village. After the transformation of the Big Jade, I have never been in the city. Turn, look curious about everything. Shaoqing, the two came to the roadside in a remote corner of the market. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 855. Here are two square tables, leaning against the wall roots. Behind a pair of picks, there is a cylindrical wooden barrel. An old man who can't open his eyes beside the barrel is holding a bowl of bean curds in a hurry. Dao immediately became unwilling, and said with a small mouth, Lao Gao said, I thought I was going to take a big meal. Who knows to eat tofu? I don't understand, it's not much better than drinking water. Ye Kong laughed. At that time, someone brought me to eat. You know it tastes good after you taste it. However, Ye Kong was late. Two small tables were occupied. One table was full of 4 monks, 3 men and 1 woman, all of whom were real people. At the other table were a man and a woman, all ancestors of Jidan. Although there are still 2 empty seats on the table on the right, monks who don't want to be too close to each other. Ye Kong wants to take a turn and wait for a while. But at that moment, Hongbo, who sells tofu, looked up at Ye Kong and greeted him casually, come, sit. Ye Kong had long guessed that the old man was an expert. Now that everyone else has let him sit, he won't leave anymore. He pulls Dao and walks over to sit at the table of Master Nan Nan Jidan. The pair of monks Jadan looked like a pair of buddies. They looked up at Yekong and lowered their heads to eat dohua, while a few people at the table next to Zuji were talking about what the heavens were. A juvenile real man said arrogantly, "The so-called heavenly way is strength. When there is strength, there is heavenly way. The greater the strength, the greater the heavenly way. When I have the power to destroy the heavens and the earth, I have the heavenly way." The other, a slightly older real person, shook his head and said, "My brother said that the rate is not strength, and the way of heaven is the essence of heaven and earth. The most mysterious things are those that are strange and difficult to explain." Yekong listened and smiled, and didn't interrupt. He took Dehua from Hongbo and gave Deo a bowl, and put a bowl in front of him. "It's delicious. Try it." As soon as Deo ate it, it tasted great. She was originally a dragon, she had a big appetite, and felt that it tasted good. She poured it directly into her mouth. Such a sturdy way of eating surprised the couple at the same table and looked at the little girl in surprise. Deo finished eating, and now she eats too fast. "I want another bowl." But Mr. Hongbo said, "This Dehua stand sells only one bowl per person." Yekong knew that the old man was a tall man, and had to push himself to Deo with a bite. But this girl didn't need to, she leaped to Hongbo's side, called a few grandpas, and sprinkled Xiaojiao lovely, she had to help Hongbo. Hongbo smiled bitterly, okay, little ancestor, if you help me today, this bucket of tofu will be totally ruined, sell you another bowl and you have to eat slowly." Soon, Deo brought another bowl, and proudly whispered, "How?" Yekong yelled, "Not good, the girl wants a lady, a little gentle, eat slowly." Oh, the cuteness of Deo made the couple smile with a smile. Then everyone drank their heads to eat tofu. The couple was still chatting while eating. The monk asked, "Brother, your magic weapon Fijian is very overbearing." The male Shiu laughed, "What is overbearing? You didn't know that there were too many overpowering magic weapons. My sapphire cold frost sword is much more powerful than the magic weapon, but it is inferior to other magic weapons." The female Shiu seemed a little disappointed. But the man Shiu said, "But my sapphire cold frost sword is still a semi-finished product. When it is completely refined, its power will be much better than other magic weapons." The disappointment of the female nun disappeared and was replaced by worship. She asked again, "It's been 40 years since my elder brother's Dandan was born. Why hasn't the magic weapon been refined?" The Manchiu sighed, "This sapphire cold frost sword needs the silk sac of the ice silkworm mother to be refined in order to have the effect of frosting 100 steps away, but the ice silkworm is easy to find, but the silkworm mother is hard to find, so it has not been refined so far. It is good." Yekong didn't speak while listening. There were indeed few ice silkworm mothers, especially Kangnan was a monk. These things were neither raised nor captured. But there should be Yunyeo there are a lot of demons that can be used to raise insects, they should still be found. Of course, Yekong doesn't know them and won't stand up and say I'll help you find, people who are so busy with their eggs will not do it. But at this time, Deo spoke and asked Yekondeo, "Master, how many of your 5 flying swords have been made, what materials are missing?" Deo didn't have the heart to compare, just listening to their conversation, it reminded me of the 5 flying swords magic that someone had heard earlier. In front of others, Yekong will not leak his bottom, vaguely, the main materials such as soundwood are still lacking, and other auxiliary materials are complete. In the 5 elements sword formation, the silk bamboo soundwood sword is a wooden flying sword. The main materials, silk bamboo and soundwood, can be accompanied by confusing sound attacks. Silk bamboo has been bought at the Black Demon, but odoki is hard to find. Many people have never heard of oki. The man at the same table couldn't think of 1 or 2, and he started to talk. "There is a strange wood in the south, but there is no sound. Do you know if this is a strange wood?" Yekong has also checked the books for a long time, and nodded in a hurry, exactly. Do you have news in this regard? The male Xiu shook his head and said, I advise Taoist friends to give up searching. Ancient books record that this sound mum is a special product somewhere in Kangnan in ancient times. When it matures, it will whine like a child crying. But it is because of this characteristics, so it is easier to find, and the sound wood is widely used, so it is extremely rare in ancient times. It is impossible to have it now. Even if it can be separated and disassembled from the ancient relics, the price is not what you and I can afford. Of Nanqiu is right, this sound wood is really hard to find. The most important thing is that this thing is a special product of Kangnan. Kangbei and Yunyeo don't even want to find it. It is really a headache, but is the 5 elements sword formation going to be incomplete? Yekong didn't want to give up yet. The two talked a few words, and everyone was familiar with it. The male self-introduction said, in the next 7-star sect Li Guanhua, this is the next accomplice Chen Shuman. I don't know how to call him. Yekong laughed, my name is Yet. Before he finished speaking, there were a lot of monks at the table next to the Tao who talked about heaven. The 3 male practitioners wanted to show up in front of the female practitioners, so the argument was fierce. The female practitioners only came here. Help! Master, they are noisy again. Li Guanhua frowned, and yelled, it's okay to be noisy in Zhongli, and it will be shameful to me if anyone comes out. Whoever says more, let me go back to my teacher now. The 3 real people over there stretched their necks and dared not speak. Li Guanhua then told Yekondeo, Yedeayu, laughed. In fact, Li Guanhua still didn't care about this Yedeayu. He was just a monk who had just gotten into Dan. He didn't even practice the magic weapon in his tone. So asking Yekong's name was kind words. Yekong didn't finish talking, and he didn't want to ask any more. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 856. Nu Shu Chen Shuman said she was very doting to the 3 apprentices. In fact, it is also a good thing that they talk about arguing about the Tao of Heaven. It is said that there is a tradition of organizing debate meetings in ancient times. Li Guanhua yelled, they just build the foundation. They know what the Tao is, so they can practice with peace of mind. It is not their job to argue. I haven't understood what the Tao is now. Yekong couldn't help but smile slightly, but Li Guanhua just saw it, thinking that Yekong was joking with him, and he was a little unhappy. Yedeayu, do you know what heaven is? Li Guanhua asked with a smile. Me, Yekong didn't know why this guy suddenly bothered him, shook his head and smiled, I don't know. Just a little monk who has just become a Dan, how can you know the Tao? Li Guanhua and Chen Shuman couldn't help laughing. But Yekong has never been despised, and he looked up and said, although I don't know what heaven is, but I have heard a story. Yekong's voice was not big or small, and several real people at the table next door heard it. Everyone noticed, and listened to what story he was going to tell. Yekondeo said, in the past, there was a growing donkey by the sea. It had many questions, but no one ever answered. Finally, one day, God came to the sea for a walk and met the donkey. The donkey asked God to answer its question. God agreed. The donkey asked, why did the sea never stop rolling waves? God answered because it was eternally asking. The donkey asked, who was the sea asking? God pointed to the sky. The donkey asked again, and the sea was answered. Is that right? God answered, sky's answer was eternal silence. After Yekong finished speaking, everyone groaned, thinking about Yekong's purpose of telling the story and the hidden machine in it. But Yekong continued to laugh, the donkey wants to ask again, but God said first, if you want to know what to do, instead of just staying on your mouth, never expect someone to answer. The donkey nodded to himself. I see, but it has one last question. Why are there so many questions for me? God answers, because you are a donkey. Everyone laughed, but Li Guanhua was a little displeased. Are you mocking me? But I don't seem to ask you a lot of questions. Although Li Guanhua still felt that Ye Kong was not scolding him, he was still upset. Ye Kong deliberately pondered him, and Yu Guang, Ye Kong's eyes, suddenly saw Hongbo's muddy eyes watching him, listening with interest. He got up quickly, hugged fist in front of Hongbo, and said, in fact, I still have to ask Hongbo about the view of heaven. Li Guanhua was not very happy, stood up with a shake of his hands, and said, ask him for the secret recipe of Duhua. Okay, ask him God. Really kidding? Li Guanhua gave a snoring sound, put down the ingot silver, and left with her brother-in-law. Hongbo buried his head as if he hadn't seen them. While holding Duhua, he said, actually, to me, this is the bowl of Duhua. As long as I make this Duhua, I just want him to be authentic. Thinking of Tiandeo to make bean curd, in the end, even bean curd will not do well. Deo shouted, 3 sentences are inseparable from our business, and those who sell Duhua know Duhua. Dade, don't be rude. Ye Kong sang and wanted to talk to the old man, but the old man was already rushing. Let's go, don't stop the old man from doing business after I finish eating. Thank Hongbo for making it happen. Farewell. Ye Kong Xianxia gave a gift, put down a few pennies, and left Deo with him. After walking so far, Hongbo's question suddenly sounded behind him, hey, young man, who is God? God is the emperor. No, it's an immortal who is bigger than the emperor. Ye Konghu uttered a word and left Deo. Instead, Hongbo grabbed his sister-in-law for a while, then finally shook his head and said, I'm not a surname. Ye Kong took Deo out of Wanjia city, and just saw Li Guanhua and others again. Ye Kong heard their tone and rushed to Yunfuzong to attend the Jo-men conference. The straight line distance between Wanjiachan and Yunfuzong is not far, but the Hongduan mountains are separated by the middle, so most people detour the Wuan River. Although it takes some time, it is safe. In fact, the Hongduan mountains are not to be missed. The repairs above Yuanying can be safely passed. Below Yuanying, you must have a fast flying instrument such as a flying boat, or it will be miserable to be surrounded by flying animals in the sky. Coincidentally, Li Guanhua and others happen to have flying boats. Yeah, of course, have to stun it. Li Daiyu, I'm going to Yunfuzong next, can I get on the road together? What can I do with beasts on the road, and I can help you a little, Ye Kong said. Li Guanhua didn't want to, but he didn't walk across the Hongduan mountains, he didn't know, and thought that many people would be fine, so he asked Ye Kong and Deo to go on a boat. Ye Kong went up and saw that the decoration of this flying boat was far worse than Yu Minghui's flying boat, but the array of each of them was not inferior. Li Guanhua flipped over a dragon-like decoration in the center of the boat, a hole was exposed underneath, and a spirit stone was put in, and the flying boat started. Put down the faucet, there is no way to see where this is starting. Ye Kong praised, the 7 stars sect really is everyone in the formation. This flying boat formation is ingenious and the various organs are cleverly arranged. It is really good. Li Guanhua heard the praise, and felt a little proud, and laughed, Ye Daiyu is the first time to take a flying boat. In fact, this is nothing, don't make a fuss. No, my friends do. Ye Kong was depressed. How could I be fussed? I've even been to Xingzhou, and am I fussing about your little flying boat? What about me? Li Guanhua and Chen Shuman gave him an apparently scornful look. At this time, they had taken Ye Kong to a small room and said, Ye Daiyu will rest inside, and ask me if you don't understand something. No, no. With the door closed, Li Guanhua turned his back and said to his aunt Chen Shuman, land leopards in the countryside have been repaired. I haven't seen the market, but I still die. Chen Shuman laughed, yeah, that's what these casual repairs are all about. Just install garlic in front of the little real people. The brothers have already been on the 4th floor of Jindan. Is he a freshman who has just entered Jindan? He's on the boat. Inside the room, Deo said angrily, these people really look down on people, let me go out and teach them. Ye Kong said, what's the point of being angry with them, no matter what, we have saved a lot of time. If you and I can also pass through the mountains, but we must be entangled by the beasts and delay time, we still have to see others. That's the benefit. Deo nodded and asked, then Hongbo just now, he said something very common. Why do you want to thank him for the point? Ye Kong laughed, actually, Hongbo means that everything has heaven. Even a bowl of tofu flowers is heaven. We monks must be indifferent to the heart and do everything in front of them to the extreme. Heaven is natural. That's it, presumably this is the natural truth of the Fa. Oh, this is the case, Deo nodded, seemingly understandable. From the Hongduan Mountains to Yunfuzong, it was really fast. Although some flying beasts were encountered on the road, the flying boat easily flew them away. 5 days later, Yunfushan in Surabaya was already in the distance. To the reader. There is one more chapter today, but a little later. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 857. Looking at Yunfu Mountain and Surabaya city at the end of the sky from afar, Ye Kong couldn't help but be inexplicably excited. Here he spent so many years and left so many memories. He took out Swimizu and said to Huang Zixuan inside, Zixuan, you see, we will return to Yunfuzong soon. I can also stabilize your soul and rebuild your body. After a few years, is the old man still alive? Huang Zixuan stayed in the swimo bead, holding his bead with his small hand. So many cameras appeared in front of him that day. Master, Wu Yi, I am back. Huang Zixuan was already in tears. However, Li Guanhua and his acquaintances also came out. Ye Kong didn't want others to see it. He put a snow ring into his storage ring. Ye Daiyu, it looks good to stand on the flying boat to see the scenery. Li Guanhua smiled, but was a bit surprised when he saw the storage ring in Ye Kong's hand. It feels good, Ye Kong nodded. Li Guanhua, however, sank, and said, Ye Daiyu, although we first met, but you are also new, I still want to say a few words to you. Please say. Li Guanhua said, don't see that you have Dan, but you know. The ancestors of Dan Dan have a lot of worlds. Even the monk Yuanying grabbed it. I heard that Yekan, the monarch of the mixed Yuan, also brought back a Mahayana period man's monk. I'm telling you this to make you know that you should be low-key. Don't take out the storage ring and display it. This is very dangerous. Your vanity is deadly. Ye Kong laughed, Tao, you said very much, but I didn't mean to show it. I just picked things up, and generally I wouldn't take them out. In fact, Li Guanhua and others just looked down on Ye Kong a little, and did not have bad intentions, otherwise they would have been preparing to kill someone for the treasure. So although Li Guanhua's tone was bad, Ye Kong didn't care. Li Guanhua saw that he accepted with an open mind, so he didn't say much, and said, also, your magic weapon that requires sound wood, I advise you not to practice it. Young people don't want to be so high, look for the magic weapon used, don't it takes time and spirits in vain. Do you say that you are a freshman who has just become dandan, and is it also used by people like you? Ye Kong nodded, yes, right. Fiaz, who is getting closer and closer to Yunfuzong, Chen Shuman also said, Ye Daiyu, this Jo-men conference, all the Jo-men's head babies came, all of them are godlike figures, but we take them, yes, don't be too rude, or we will all be ashamed of you. Yes, no. Chen Shuman said again and asked, Did they pass on the message to the younger brother and let them wait for us at the door? In fact, she asked Li Guanhua, but Ye nodded in a hurry, without thinking. She just received it, it's over. Li Guanhua and Chen Shuman laughed loudly, saying that this is really a monk in the country, and he still has to lose face. What is your voice and who can you pass it to? The flying boat was extremely fast, and in a few words, he had already arrived near the mountain gate, and Li Guanhua quickly lowered the flying boat. However, Li Guanhua and Chen Shuman are still quite puzzled, because outside the gate of Yunfuzong, there is a group of bosses, all of whom are monks, depending on their clothes, each has it. Chen Shuman said depressed, "Brother, didn't you say that my brother came to pick us up? Why so many people?" Zuji, who was also followed, laughed, "Master and master, that's how Yunfuzong gave us face, knowing that our master is the great figure of 7 stars section." "Look at what you said, what kind of person is the teacher?" Li Guanhua scolded, but he was proud. If the younger brothers gathered at the door to greet themselves, it would be extremely cool. At this moment, a crisp girl sounded and asked, "Son, so many people, who are they?" Ye Kong laughed, "The tallest man over there is Yuan Hao Li Haoshan, the wind woman next to He Huanzong is the ancestor of Yuan Ying Yi Tong, and the insignificant old man with a goatee is Refiner." Huang Yan, who had a look of disdain around him, thought that Wang Jun, the head infant of Sword and Dock, was a man who resembled the elixir of the mountain, and had a serious face that was Yuan, who was a well-behaved righteous gate. Ye Kong heard Li Guanhua and others stunned. They don't know these people, but they have all heard of them. Which one of these people is not the 6th Dang Dang of Kangnan University? Li Guanhua and others were surprised. Why did these people greet themselves outside the gate? When have you been so bullying? Really unknowingly, it turned out that he was a person. But what surprised Li Guanhua and others even more is that how can you evaluate these characters like the Xianxia? Look at what words are used: wind, insignificance, hypocrisy, calmness, self-righteousness, human-like dog. God. Are you crazy? You are crazy, we are not crazy. Li Guanhua quickly stopped someone's crazy evaluation and yelled, "Ye Daiyu. What are you talking about? Since you know the names of these people, you should know that they can let you die 100 times. Oh, Ye Kong quickly shut up. Dayu, in one fell swoop, Li, I want to beat you." The real people in Zujiji laughed. The little girl was only 10 years old. So who can you beat with a big fist? Ye Kong knew Dayu's strength and hurriedly said, "Dayu, don't make any noise." As he said, Fias who landed, Li Guanhua slightly adjusted his hem, and walked out with his accomplice Chen Shuman. He was not very confident at first, but watching the bosses approaching themselves, Li Guanhua whispered, "Oh my God, I am so famous." Chen Shuman spoke to him, "Don't be nervous, don't be stressed, hold your head up and treat them as air." Indeed, they were treated as air. Li Guanhua and others walked down the flying boat with high spirits, and the Yuanyings didn't even look at it, they just crossed each other and walked to a fellow hunk behind. "Xiao Daiyu, unexpectedly, we have a day to meet," Lian Fanchen said. "Xiao, I have always been optimistic about you, we are good women," Acacia Yi Tong ancestor said. "Brother Ye, have my golden slabs come in handy? Or should I rework one for you?" "Cut, your sculptors are stingy, are you sorry to say that? Don't look, this must be Huang Yan and Wang Jun. It is Cao Guang's most reliable, your kid cheated me so hard, but it looks better now, and my skin is still white." Li Guanhua and Chen Shuman over there almost looked dumbfounded and said, too crazy, I wouldn't be dreaming." The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 858. Of course, Ye Kong can't notice them anymore. Although Ye has a bad temper, his popularity seems to be good. There are several layers around him. The most enthusiastic is that Yun Fuzong's younger couplets have been played. I am the darkest when it's dark, and the Xianxia generations look away from the wind, you are mad and not mad, and the rivers and lakes are small, and they worship. The horizontal batch is black and mad. Yekong laughed, do you praise me or scold me? Cao Guang laughed. Your good friends are all behind, and I'll talk to them later. Yekong was enthusiastically infected and laughed, where is Li Haoshan? Li Haoshan, who had never had a chance to speak out, hugged his fist and said, Master, please tell me. Remember the faction who came to pick me up today. For those who didn't meet me, I will not see them kneeling in front of me in the future. Yunfuzong Yingbin Building, VIP area. Qingming was led by monk Zhou Sanshao, one of the denominations who did not go out to meet. Jidan's ancestor Six Zhen also came today. The two stood at the window with flowers and trees and looked at Yunfuzong's lively mountain gate. Six Zhen said, the shameless old guys all flatter a junior and don't know how to deal with Zhong Nei's younger brother in the future. Zhou Sanshao laughed, haven't you heard that the surnamed Ye came back from Kangbei for a Mahayana period? Six Zhen haha laughed, unfortunately, I have heard that in a few days, this Mahayana master is about to cross the robbery and rise. The two burst into laughter. Zhen said again, but this kid's words are also crazy enough. He won't meet him today. He won't see him kneeling in the future, could there be any handles in his hands? Zhou Sanshao sneered coldly, arrogant ignorance, posing as a big-tail wolf, I'd like to see, who will kneel in the future. Six nodded, looking at the distance, a cold light flashed in his eyes, this Yekong and I have the vengeance of killing women, and they have collapsed my ancestral land in Qingming, and Uncle Shitting Fen was also mixed Yuan Zone the Nether Fairy was wounded and has not recovered, we have a deep hatred for Yekong. We must find an opportunity to clear this person as soon as possible, otherwise we will raise tigers. Yunfuzong Huishan, Yekandong Fu. Baiji ran into the house and called out, Sister Wu Yi, Li, no, Ye Xianxia is back, please go out to meet him. Zhang Wei wasn't excited. He didn't feel good. When he came back, he would come back for a few years. He didn't even think about coming back, even a message. Baiji wasn't so excited when she heard her bad tone, but she turned her eyes, what happened, and whispered, are you really indifferent? It doesn't matter. Not give a about. Not give a about. Baiji's eyes waved, and he smiled and asked, why did you change everything on net? There are net couches in the double room of the couple, but Yekong does not return all the year round, so Zhang Wei did not go to sleep, a lot of dust fell, and now he changed the sheets, which is obviously the preparation work of Zhang Wei. Zhang Wei's face flushed immediately, and he replied, I'm not afraid that guy will, when he comes back. Baiji laughed. Then you don't care. Zhang Wei blushed and turned his head, I don't care, he wants. Then you took the initiative to change the net clean sheets? Oh, did you miss him too? Baiji ran out with a smile. Zhang Wei finally couldn't hold himself, and giggled, chasing Baiji and shouting, Sister Ji, I think it's you. Don't think you didn't know, I and Huang Zixuan bought it under your store. Things, you do do good things above. Well, no, I definitely don't want him, I want my son. The two women clambered out of Dongfu and saw a group of people walking up the mountain avenue. Yekong was talking with Lian Fanchen, and Lian Fanchen said, I was mishandled at the beginning, and I have ordered people to cancel the hunting order of the year. Well, Ye Xiao, I have always been sincere to friends with Lian Fanchen. I do want to say anything extra then, there was some injustice to the little friends that year. It's okay if the little friends need compensation. Lian Fanchen is so generous, he will still be his own husband, and Yekong will have to say, actually, I didn't take it to heart. Besides, if it wasn't for the black jade discontinuity that the monk gave me in Yuan zone, Xiao this time it was hung in Kangbei, how can you still remember Fanchen Zhenjun? Everyone laughed, Yi Tong's ancestor laughed, True Jun? What's this name, is it the monk's title? She asked, and she was quiet all around, all the babies were staring at Yekong, their faces were smiling, but their eyes were a little like a wolf. No wonder, people in Yunyeo were curious about Kangnan of course, people are also curious about Kangbei. Yekongdeo said, in fact, Zhenjun is the ancient monk's title of monk Yuan, and the monarch is the monk who converted the gods. The refining period is called returning to the void and the Mahayana period is called the one. These titles have been lost in our Kangnan, but it's still being used there. That's the way it is. The surroundings warmed up again. Cao Guang joked, after that, you have to call me Cao Guangzhen. Then I am Yitong Zhenjun. Lian Fanchen also smiled, and then asked a sharp question, I heard that Ye Xiao brought back a Mahayana period great man, is it true? Everyone is quiet again. Ye Hollow Road, if not, will you scream at me so much? More than a dozen high-ranking leaders went out to greet them, but how big the pomp was due to the appearance of Kuang Peng. Yes, that's a friend I met over there. He's going to take off soon. At first, all Yuanyings only heard about it, and they still had some unbelief in their hearts. Now they have confirmed it, and they are very surprised. You know, no one has been soaring for tens of thousands of years in Kangnan. How could they not be surprised when they heard the news? Lian Fanchen froze for a while, probably did not expect Yekong to tell the truth so happily. He then said rudely, well, can you let me wait, and watch the senior's ascension? Refining Fanchen's words is probably the main purpose of these guys. For them, to learn from the experience of other people's ascension, then it's ridiculous, they are still far away from ascension. As far as comprehending the Tao from the ascension, it is unlikely. They mainly want to see the grand occasion, and finally absorb some fairy light, then it is the most affordable. However, Yekong regretfully told them that Kuang Peng went to Kangbei and soared. Just when everyone was disappointed, Yekong said again that although he couldn't see the monk soar, he had a photo bead in which he recorded the whole process of another monk's ascension. Zhou Yuanying was happy now. But can't you just look at it for nothing? The elders of the Black Demon Zone also gave him 100 million spirit stones. Yekong sighed, you do know. The soaring guy is very unethical. He set up a matrix and kidnapped all the monks to help him fight against the thunderbolt. I almost hung there. Lingxi didn't know how much he had sucked. Zhou Yuanying immediately realized, we should share a little bit of spirit, we should, take such a big risk. Of course, Yekong hasn't forgotten, I didn't meet me today, so I won't let the spirit stone look. Yes, Li Haoshan sent Yekong to take the photo beads. The elders in the black suits returned to him after watching it. After all, this is not a video, and it is boring to look at it. At this time, Zhou Yuanying had a new problem. Since monks in Kangbei can rise, it seems that all of them have complete methods, I don't know. Yekong knew they asked the most, but he didn't want to say it yet. He stretched his arms and said, everyone, I made a plane for a few days. What caused the jet lag? Although Zhou Yuanying didn't understand it, it was quite understandable. Cao Guang laughed, then you take a break first, Wu Yi is waiting for you in Dongfu, this boy, I haven't spoken in Kangbei for a long time, just rest, jet lag. Yuanying followed Li Haoshan's plan to spend money on watching movies, but Lian Fanchen was caught by Yekong. Major Fanchen is slow. Yekong called Lian Fanchen and asked, Rulan, how good? Lian Fanchen said, really this boy asked, it is hard to say. He nodded. Rulan, good, of course. Yekong said again, presumably Master Monk knows the younger. Lian Fanchen interrupted, in fact,
After knowing this, I absolutely agree. Young talents like Ye Xiao are indeed hard to find with lanterns, but, this. Lian Fanchen said, but now Buddy said it's not counted, how can this matter be exported? Lian Fanchen murmured 2 sentences and finally said, just if Ruolan can't come to Yunfuzong this time, Ma Xiao Ei has a letter from her to you, and you can tell at a glance. Lian Fanchen ran away quickly after speaking, and was still thinking, but fortunately, the fool passed, and let Ma Xiao Ei's kid to talk. I hope this guy will not kill Ma Xiao Ei. However, after taking 2 steps, Lian Fanchen thought, why do I seem to be afraid of him? I am a monk, what am I afraid of him? Forget it, it doesn't matter. A group of UN infants left, Yekong's brothers in Yunfuzong surrounded him again, Zhang Wulan took the brunt, and came up and patted Yekong with a smile, congratulations, it's Dan, we have to call your teacher in the future. Uncle. Li Ruo, who has become an acquaintance with him, said, what kind of uncle should be called a senior? Brother Ye is now the monarch of the Yuan dynasty. Zhang Wulan said angrily, what kind of lord, even if he is a fairy emperor, he is also my master. The cousins inside and outside Yunfuzong who followed were cheered up, yes, he will always be our master. Although the title of the big brother could not keep up with the respect of his predecessors, he was more cordial and more representative of Yekong's weight in their hearts. Yekong couldn't help but be so excited, he said, whether it is Li Hizi or Yekong. Regardless of the suzerain or whatever, I will always be your master. Boom, everyone is excited, and shouted again and again, long live my brother, my master will win. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 859. But Yekong was missing one person and asked, what about Cao Junfan's kid? Ye Xian laughed, Cao Junfan's refining degree is the fastest of our Yunfuzong. Now he is also going to retreat, and he said that he would give you a surprise when he comes back, but he never expected you to be better than him. Dan is faster. Although Yekong was in Kangbei, but a group of brothers, no one had forgotten him, he would often mention him, and believed that he would return safely. Yekong moved, I didn't think my brothers did not forget me, nor did I forget everyone. When he came to the cave, Yekong took out Yunyeo's unique lingu spirit and flesh, and there were many rare treasures in Kangnan, so that all the brothers took the points, and the audience had a share, and everyone went happily. At this time, Zhang Wulan just whispered, although today is a happy day, but, I still have to ask, Sister Xian, she. In the happy days, everyone was reluctant to mention sadness, but Huang Zixuan's safety was still on their minds. After all, Yekong went into Kangbei alone to take risks to save Huang Zixuan. Yekong didn't speak, just nodded. It happened that Zhang Wei also stepped out of Dongfu, and when she heard this, she screamed, really, Sister Xianxia was saved. Although she was in Yunfuzong, she heard about Huang Zixuan. She learned that Huang Zixuan died for Yekong, and she cried too much. In fact, in Zhongli, her relationship with Huang Zixuan was the best. Like the sisters and sisters, I heard that Huang Zixuan is okay now, and he is happier than learning that Ye has returned. This has made Ye a little bit of vinegar. Seeing Zhang Wei coming out, Zhang Wulan patted Yekong in a daunting voice and whispered, then I won't bother, hey, Xiao Bei is better than a newlywed. Well, why are you all so gangsters? Yekong shook his head and scorned a bit. Everyone knows that when Yekong returns, he has to communicate with Zhang Wei, so all of them are embarrassed and leave. Yekong smiles, embraces Zhang Wei's waist, and walks into Dongfu. Seeing Yekong returning alone, Bai Jier's eyes flashed with worry, but then he smiled and greeted, saying, Li Xianxi, oh, no,
Ye Xianxia, you are back. Although Yekong and Baijie had a close relationship, Yekong now looked different. Zhang Wei has seen Yekong's true content, but he didn't care much, but Baijie still felt a bit separated. After all, he was facing a person with a different appearance. The three entered the room, and Yekong took out Swimizhu from the endlessly. Presumably, Huang Zixuan also wanted to see Zhang Wei. When Huang Zixuan and Zhang Wei met, they didn't say a word, they began to cry, and after life and death friendship, it seemed so exciting. I'll take you to see Master Zhang Wei burst into tears and ran out of Dongfu with Swimizhu. Although Cao Muxi didn't say anything, but Zhang Wei knew that Master Zone was also very worried about Huang Zixuan. Now he is back, of course, he will see Master the first time. There was only one Baijie in the room. After several years of absence, Baijie was still the same, beautiful and charming, with the charm of a newly formed woman. Now Yekong was looking at himself, Baijie was underneath, and his heart jumped up without rest. There's good news, and bad news, which one do you want to hear first? Yekong said suddenly. Baijie heard him say this, and her heart was already a little shivering. Bad news? Is Xianxia? She lifted her head, her eyes were covered with mist, and her rosy bead lips had lost her blood color, and her teeth said, bad news. Yekong pretended to be dignified. I originally wanted Xianxia to come back and meet you, but... What's the matter? Baijie asked anxiously, tears were already in her eyes. Yekong laughed, it's just that he suddenly has to build the foundation, and you can see each other after he builds the foundation. Baijie only knew that Yekong had teased her. But the mother cared about her son, she was still not assured, and asked, but really? You don't lie to me. Yekong laughed, he is also the same as I practiced, sooner than January, slower than March, he will definitely appear in front of you. Baijie really believed this. He stretched out his small powder fist and hammered Yekong with an angry temper, and shouted, it's scary. This time, someone's bones were beaten. He caught Baijie's fist, kissed him on the back of her free hand, and smiled, why don't you ask for good news? Baijie's pretty face was crimson, she looked down at her toes, and whispered, your peace is the greatest good news. There is nothing else you can ask for. Your peace is the greatest good news, and there is nothing else to ask for. The simple words are indeed the most moving. Yehalo was soft, took Baijie's soft waist, rubbed her scented green silk with her face, and said softly, the good news is that I have found a golden fruit for mortals. In the future, you can refine. Just when they wanted to be intimate, they heard a little girl coughing intentionally in the corner of the room. A little sister coughed, scaring the pair of Yekong's nose had forgotten the violent girl. Baijie flushed with blush, how could this intimate behavior be seen by the little girl? Isn't this a bad little sister? It's all about you. Baijie gave someone a second sting, walked over and smiled, who is this little girl? It's so cute. Deo replied, Sister Baijie, I know you, but you don't know me, I have seen you and your son many times. Cough, Yekong coughed this time. Before that, Deo stayed in the spirit beast circle and didn't know how many restricted level shots he had seen, but Baijie didn't know it. Otherwise, he will become a strange uncle who teaches little Luoli. My son, haven't you taught my children to be honest? Deo has since become a human figure, and has been so cunning. He must have been damaged by Huang Quan's ancestors. Yekong squeezed out a smile and said, high-level spirit beast Dan. Deo drooled and stopped talking. Baijie yelled, what are you talking about, why can't I understand, go round. Spirit beast Dan, Deo didn't forget to remind him, and ran out with a small powder fist. Baijie loves children, watching Deo bouncing back and saying, what a lovely little girl. Then let's have one, too. Yekong smiled and hugged Baijie from behind,
watching her greasy black neck under the thick black silk, and at the same time a good smell of women came. Ye Kong has already felt a little bit hot at the moment. Xiaobi is better than a newly married couple, not to mention, Baijia is already slender and has a pitiful appearance, which is the kind of woman who makes men most impulsive. Ye Moran couldn't hold his hands up and down, Baijia held the lower side and was attacked from above, while holding the upper side, someone's hand slid down to her belly again. Baijia flushed and finally pressed someone's hands between her legs, which gave her a chance to take a breath. She took a long breath and whispered, "Don't worry, tell the business. Do you know? The little girl who gave us a kind of spirit grass is blossoming, but it is the daughter of the Emperor of the East." Ah, Ye Kong was shocked. He had heard Ye Menying say that, but he never thought that the daughter of Xiandi turned out to be blossoming. Ye Kong suddenly thought that the day when he was in Kangbei, the unicorn cloud-hoofed animal pulled the princess in the car, it turned out to be blossoming? He asked quickly, "When did she leave?" Baijia said, "It didn't take long before you took Xianxia, and the blossoms disappeared. Cao Moking's ancestors also came to ask us, we don't know. But 2 years later, the Eastern Emperor came to Yunfuzong. Come to Kangnan parties." Later, Cao Guang's ancestors told us that Xiandi told him that Duodu is the daughter of Xiandi, and he often likes playing in the lower world, and he also thanked us for taking care of her. Ye Kong was a little scared, but at that time, he offended the wealthy girl, but fortunately he didn't offend it, otherwise he could be unlucky. He nodded and said, "Time is almost on the same side. It seems that the fortune teller girl was in the car that day, but speaking, thanks to her for saving my life, otherwise I would offend Gu Yueyang and kill Xian Guan Shanban Jianren, these are all enough for me to die many times." Baijia said, "I said these are to tell you that at that time, Duoduo also taught me a spell that mortals can use, and now I want to come, that is immortal." Oh, Ye Kong was shocked again. Then he retracted a yang finger from Baijia's leg, and said, "Show it." Blossoming Baijia is a spell that sprinkles water on the grass. This spell seems to be similar to the monk's spell, but it is essentially different. The monk's spell mobilizes Reiki, but blossoming teaches her, but does not use Reiki at all, but a higher level of control, the power of heaven. Of course, it is impossible to learn the power of heaven from this little fairy art, but Ye Kong is thinking again, can the people in the immortal world directly practice the fairy art without experiencing the level of immortal cultivation? Think about it too. People in the netherworld began to cultivate immortals after being born, soared after crossing the calamity, and then went to the immortal world to learn immortality, and those who were born in the immortal world? Of course, they don't need to cultivate immortals, they can directly practice immortality. In other words, the cultivation in the lower realm is not very useful. The key is to go to the upper realm. In the realm, even if you are immortal, you can directly learn immortal art. Ye Kong thought of it, but smiled again. What's the use of knowing this? People in the nether, how can they go to the immortal world without flying? Not everyone has an immortal father. Although she taught you a kind of watering fairy, but you still have to eat the golden fruit, cultivate the fairy, step by step, Ye Kong said, holding Baijia back and holding up. Okay, do NTY immortals are a waste of time, now we go to practice first. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 860. Baijia certainly understands what someone calls refining, burying Fan's face in Ye Kong Kao, and his heart starts to bounce again, but his mouth is ashamed. "Master, you have changed appearance now, can you please God again?" "No. Let me adjust." "No. Hello domineering." Well, the suspenders. Ye Kong peeled off Baijia's coat, and was surprised to find that it was a white silk suspender, similar to the suspender pajamas of the earth, but not so long. "This is not what I taught you. I didn't expect you to develop a new product yourself," Ye Kong said,
and began to kiss the white and delicate snow muscles outside the two thin straps. Baiji blushed, "It's nothing, there are several styles, in fact, I prefer to make beautiful clothes, and it's okay not to immortal." Baiji's idea was very bad. Yekong stopped and said, "How can you think like that? I know you have an ideal, and you like to make clothes. But can you make your ideal bigger and try to rise to the fairyland? Also opened a women's clothing factory in fairyland, so that those fairy princes and immortals and many fairies will wear the clothes you design and make, you know, fairy people also need to wear clothes." "Yeah, that's a good idea. Sell buys women's clothing to the immortal world." Baiji has always been indifferent to Xiu Xiaoxiu, but she has new goals and filled her with expectations. Now that Baiji has found his ideal and has the motivation to cultivate his immortals, then Ye Dagang is going to do his business. With the thin straps peeling from the smooth and shiny shoulders, Ye Kong also changed from a saint to a kidney fighter. In another cave house not far away, the three women were crying, but they were not tears of sadness, tears of happiness, crying with joy. Although Cao Muse has survived this big six for so long, she is more likely to control her emotions, but when she saw Huang Zixuan crying master in tears in Shuesuezu, Cao Muse's emotions opened, and tears burst out. Zhang Wei cried for a while and just stopped, but she saw tears once again, and she cried again. Seeing master and good sisters so cherish themselves, an apology and guilt rushed into their hearts. Huang Zixuan replied and said, "Wu Yi, I'm sorry, I and Ye Kong, I'm sorry." Huang Zixuan also struggled in her heart for a long time. She always felt that she had snatched the good sisters' stuff, and most importantly, master always taught them to find a loyal and reliable man, but unfortunately, it seems that loyalty and reliability are not popular. Good sisters all fell in love with a disloyal but reliable fancy man. Ye Kong was originally a hooligan. Although he admired noble people, he really made him noble to women, and he couldn't do it. In fact, it is not necessary for Huang Zixuan to say that Zhang Wei has already seen it. Even if you see it, then Huang Zixuan was born of Ye Kong's death. Who else does NT understand? You are such a silly girl thinking of this, Cao Mose cursed with tears. I'm sorry, Wu Yi, I'm sorry master, I have restrained, but I still can't restrain, I like him, I can die for him. Huang Zixuan choked. You are not wrong. Zhang Wei wiped a tear, it is right to love someone. Watching the good sisters accept themselves, master did not deny it. Huang Zixuan's eyes circled red, showing a smile, the sunshine was fresh and moving like the rain. Martial arts, master, thank you. Zhang Wei hummed, blame that hooligan if you blame it, my good sisters won't let it go, hum. Cao Muse deeply thought of the little pepper's remarks, and then scolded, yes, I blame the hooligan, even if I peddle 2 boats, even my master. When Cao Muse said this, his heart fluttered. I almost talked about what happened on the inn, although for the past 6 years, but every night I was quiet, or woke up from meditation, Cao Muse would think of the deep kiss and his big hand the heat. What about even master? Zhang Wei and Huang Zixuan both looked at Cao Muse in surprise. Even master was blinded by the drum. Cao Muse temporarily changed her word, and pinched her ears behind her ear, laughing and cursing, you 2 little girls have been following the hooligan for a long time, you also become a hooligan, where do you want to go? Zhang Wei and Huang Zixuan both smiled embarrassedly. After the smile, Zhang Wei cut his teeth again, master, I'll go and pull him back, let's teach the boy together. Forget it, he just came back and let him take a rest. Cao Muse blushed, and she was still a little embarrassed to see Ye Kong. It's okay, he's fine, and we can just ask him about the situation in Kangbei, or go to our side. At the invitation of Zhang Wei's hospitality, Cao Muse took Shuesuezu and had to pass by the cave next door. Some people have to guess, is it right?
Then they are someone Ye is fighting with Baiji'er, then Zhang Wei joins the war, and finally Cao Muse also pushes halfway, Huang Zixuan stays in the snowball beads to watch the battle. I can only say, brother, you are so evil, your thoughts are more hooligan than Ye Kong. When they passed, Ye Kong and Baiji'er were in the hall of Dongfu. They were neatly dressed and were receiving guests. Yu Minghui didn't originally want to come to the High Gate meeting, but later heard that Ye Kong was back, so he brought his priest Viang to Yun Fuzong, and Ye Kong had a front and back foot. Yu Minghui heard that Ye Kong had arrived first, and he was so happy that he asked Ye Kong Donghouse to come. Ye also had to stop shooting and rest his horse, organize his clothes and greet Yu Minghui. Ye Kong, haha, you cheated me so hard. How does everyone say this? Ye Kong replied, at the time, there was nothing I could do, but the name was just a code name. Ye Kong and Li Hiza were secondary. The important thing is that we are still good brothers. Yu Minghui was very useful, and laughed, as long as you still recognize me as a good friend. He pointed at Viang again, and said, why, she got out of Shuesuazu, you don't know. Wei Yang won the house. From the appearance, she really can't see it, but she still smiled. Ye Kong guess can also guess, Sister Viang. Yu Minghui laughed, called a bitch. Oh, when did you become my elder brother? But Ye Kong didn't hesitate. It seems that Yu Minghui is indeed a little older than him. Seen the bitch? Wei Yang laughed, I didn't meet again last time. This time you have become the suzerain, and you can't give it up if you want to. Yu Minghui laughed, he still owes me more than 100 flying fish swords. Ye Kong is depressed. I have a lot of hands to grab, how can I owe you? Your kid can remember such things for so long. Hey, I have your handle. Ye Kong laughed, brother you, it was a life of 9 deaths when I entered the Kangbei Devil District, and I almost stayed there forever. Oh, you can easily get the condensed chalcedony. Yu Minghui's little white face suddenly became a little white. He smiled, everyone, your Dongfu environment is very elegant. This kid wants to make a difference. Ye Kong ignored him, and continued, those demon lords in Kangbei are terrible, 3 heads, 6 arms. Oh, your kid will die if you do not say a word. Yu Minghui glared at someone, but someone seemed to suddenly become blind and turned a blind eye. The most bizarre. Oh, you're not bad for my flying fish sword. Ye Kong continued, those witches. Yu Minghui said angrily, even if I sent you a few hundred, Fujian headquarters. Yu Minghui was suddenly excited, startled Wei Yang and Baiji'er who were listening to God. The most annoying is someone, who seems to know nothing, and asked, brother you, I'm going to say that the witch's skirt grows out of the flesh. What are you excited about? Got it, this kid was fooled. Yu Minghui stared at someone fiercely, taking care of himself, the guy who couldn't eat at all. But Yu Minghui smiled on his face, and said with great grace, you said the witch, I heard it wrong, and thought you said Viang. Compared to his demeanor, this explanation is far-fetched, and anyone can hear that there is something abnormal between Yu Minghui and the witch. At this time, Wei Yang grabbed Yu Minghui's hand and said, in fact, even if no one said, I know that going deep into the devil's zone looking for the condensed chalcedony, there will be many hardships and humiliations, and many will not remember time, but even then, I don't think those stains have become his stain. On the contrary, he is more precious in my eyes and in my heart, and it is worth my life to save and treasure. This sentence was so touched that Yu Minghui held Wei Yang's hand tightly and couldn't speak. Ye Kong embarrassed, I'm just joking with Minghui. Viang laughed, I don't blame you, I don't know yet. You have been at sea for a few months, and you have been fighting every day. Ye Kong and Yu Minghui both grinned. At this moment, Viang asked again, brother Ye is not afraid of suffering in Kangbei, right? When Wei Yang asked, the room was quiet. At this moment, Zhang Wei and Cao Muse also came outdoors. Just listening to Yekong's voice, yes, the experience in Kangbei was really inexhaustible. It was not just suffering. It was a crisis full of difficulties and difficulties. Without friends to help, it was always a person fighting. The most terrible thing was not death. The most terrible thing is to be caught by demons, to become their slaves, to be a tool for arbitrary bullying and pleasure. Such a life is simply better than death. When the women listened, they were full of tears, and Yu Minghui, who had personally experienced it, could not help but take a breath and nodded silently. But Yekong laughed and said, all the experiences are worth it. For my own woman, I have to suffer and suffer. There is nothing to say, nothing to show off, let alone Zi Suan Wei. I died, how can I not die for her? Brother Minghui is nobler than me. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 861. Yu Minghui laughed, I'm like you, no noble and noble, Wei Yang died for me at the beginning. If I don't try to save her, am I still a man? After Yu Minghui said, Wei Yang had wiped her tears. A red figure also rushed in and rushed into Yekong's arms. She died for me, why can't I die for her? Very rustic words, not gorgeous, and no rhetoric, but they made a sound, so moving. Even Cao Muse, who followed him, was very upset. This man is good, and his two apprentices have very good eyes. Well, such a man, even if he has two more wives, is acceptable. Kangnan's resolute feminist, Master Cao Muse, also shaken her monogamy. However, the situation was not good. Seeing Huang Zixuan and Xue Minghui in the Suezu beads, there are only 3 traces of the 3 souls and 7 souls, and a large number of souls enter the cycle, which is more complicated than Viang's original. Listening to Yu Minghui's remarks, the newly relaxed hearts of the people are hanging up again. Yekong stepped to Yu Minghui in one step and asked, Minghui, explain exactly what is going on. Yu Minghui frowned, people have 3 souls and 7 souls, 3 souls are the main, and 7 souls are supplemented. 7 souls were born of 3 souls, and 3 souls gave birth to 7 souls. There is nothing. These people all understand and nodded. Yu Minghui also said, although Huang Zixuan's current entity has a weak soul, it has both a soul and a soul. This is still good, but, most of her soul has already entered the cycle. The rebirth of one's house will become the soul of one person but give birth to 2 people. This is a matter of rebellion against heaven. Even if it succeeds, it will be condemned. Cao Muse nodded. Yes, one soul can only be used by one person. This is the law of heaven. It seems that the soul who has entered the reincarnation has not yet been reborn. Otherwise, Xianxia in Xue Suezu will die. Seeing that all the efforts will be brought to nothing, Yekong anxiously said, what shall we do? Didn't Sister Viang succeed? Yu Minghui said, there is no way. Cao Muse said, recruitment. Yes, Yu Minghui said, most of Huang Zixuan's souls are gone, and they will not become lonely ghosts. She can basically be regarded as a complete soul, so the underworld is collected. At this moment, her soul should wait in the underworld. Reincarnation, generally, soul calling is to recall those scattered lonely souls, and it is impossible to pull the soul out of the underworld. There is no way, just forget it. Huang Zixuan smiled a little in Xue Mozu, she was already dying, and she had lived with Yekong for so long, she felt she had made money. Listen to me, Yu Minghui said a word and made people see confidence again. He said, although we do not have the ability to pull the soul out of the underworld, but we can rush to the path of reincarnation after the soul leaves the underworld, and we will rush it in one stroke higher. Everyone's eyes brightened. Yekong shot big, okay. Let's do this. But, how do we know when she will give birth and where will she call her soul? At the time of reincarnation, You can ask the 7-star Zongma Yangtze River Yuan Ying to calculate. As for the soul hunting, I am only the master. Ye Kong laughed, relax, then Ma Changjiang and your master Yaitong Zhenjun should be willing to help me. Not necessarily, Yu Minghui smiled bitterly. This kind of soul raising is not ordinary soul raising. It is very time consuming and labor intensive. After the recall, it must be stable for at least 3 months, my master has vowed after the soul raising for Viang last time. Even if the emperor descended from the earth, she would never do it again. It turned out that Yu Minghui was worried that Yi Tong would not do it. Ye Kong laughed and patted Yu Minghui, relax. Immortal emperor does not come. Yet is someone like Emperor Xiandi? Does your master not do it for Xiandi, but he will definitely do it for me? Ye Kong felt a little ambiguous, and gave him to me. Ye Kong replied, in short, someone else has gone, your master will not do it. For me, your master must have done it. Well, it seems that there is still ambiguity. Of course, all the women in the house are very pure, no one will think blindly. Rather, the boy, Yu Minghui, was very unruly, and said before leaving, I'll go back first, you will come over later, and I can still say a few words for you, but my master never does it for people outside the sect. Ye Kong cursed, your boy owes a shit, tell you master, she must kill you. Yu Minghui laughed, pulling Wei Yang to the first round of Huan Zone resident. Both Cao Muse and Zhang Wei were still sullen. Obviously, they felt that Yi Tong would not help so easily. Even if Ye Kong is now the monarch of the Yuan dynasty, it can really make those famous Gao Yuan infants do their best. Shot. Let them lose their mental energy to help you save people. Even if she promised, the price would be huge. Cao Muse said, even Yi Tong's ancestors greeted everyone with a smile on the surface, but as a high-ranking head infant, it was not easy to be with them for a long time. At that time, it is best to ask Cao Guang's ancestors to help persuade. This is also a kind word for her. Besides, Huang Zixuan is her apprentice, and she also needs to contribute. But Ye Kong waved his hand and said, no matter what, I believe that Yaitong's ancestor will definitely help me. Ye Kong said this, Zhang Wei was a little disbelieving, saying, we still have to do more preparations, although you are already the suzerain, but we know that the mixed Yuan zone has been in a bad mood recently. After several wars, for many years the savings have also been moved to the dead yin section, therefore, no matter whether it is financial or strength, the mixed Yuan zone is unlikely to meet Yaitong's ancestors' requirements. Ye Kong smiled mysteriously. I say it doesn't matter. Why? I still don't believe in husband. His words were a little frivolous, Zhang Wei's face turned red, and she said, go, master is still there. She peeked at Cao Muse, but now Cao Muse's eyes are looking outside. Zhang Wei yelled again, you always have some weird ideas. Now that Sister Huang Zixuan is also worried, you just say it out, let us rest assured. Ye Kong said, of course, I have already made a good wife for my husband, but this plan is really strong, but for Xian to be able to resurrect successfully and to make everyone's women feel at ease. Ye Kong said solemnly on his face, so I decided to use this trick for Yaitong Zhenjun forever. Cao Muse's attention was immediately attracted, and she didn't care about the woman said by someone, so she asked quickly, what is an ancient plot? That's, beautiful man. Ye Da's hooligan was full of faces, as if he was about to go to the execution ground. Beautiful boy, Cao Muse and Zhang Wei looked at each other, and then Ren couldn't help laughing. Zhang Wei said, you are still a beautiful boy like this? That is, my sister Xian and my eyes are so distressed that I accidentally confuse you. Even Huang Zixuan in Swimizu laughed and said, I think you are not as good as brother Heza now. Ye Kong was furious, hey, I said I was ugly when I was black, and now I am white and I am not a beautiful man. I tell you,
you can insult my body, you can't insult my personality. Se said, Master is here, please ask Master to say, how many beautiful and handsome men like me can you find in Kangnan? Cao Muse couldn't help smiling, saying, although you can't be regarded as a beautiful man, but I think that you look better now than Li Hizi. Well, I still like how you look now. After being loved by Cao Muse, Ye said proudly, how's it? Master said it all. Cao Muse said, but Yitong's ancestors read countless people. Hehuanzong's male brothers are all gentle and elegant. I think you are still dead. Ye Kong shook his head and said, Master said this is bad. Based on my experience of mixing middle-aged women for so many years, I feel that a woman like Yitong's ancestor needs me, a real man with a strong arm. With one kiss, it will definitely make her die. Before Ye Kong had finished speaking, he saw Cao Muse's complexion suddenly change. He snorted coldly, turned away, leaving behind a charming back. Master is angry, Zhang Wei Nana said. Where did I offend her? Ye Kong scratched his head. I already knew in my heart that when Cao Muse was saved in the mixed UN zone, she just hugged her tightly and kissed her. It is estimated that she was sitting on the right seat, thinking that it was ironic to her. Alas, the woman's mind was really troublesome. Forget it, Yu Minghui's kid has gone back for a long time, and now it's time for this beautiful man to play. Ye Kong decided to meet Yitong Zhenjun. Zhang Wei stretched his hands behind him. Although Ye Kong was trying to save Huang Zixuan, but his man had just returned and hadn't been in love with himself, he would have to put in the arms of other women. Ye Kong took her little hand and hugged the fragrant body tightly, lowered her head and pecked at her pink lips, and smiled, fun for you, is this the kind of person who lives on the skin? Man, to get the world, you need your hands, not the rest of your body. Zhang Wei felt warm, but she clearly felt that someone's other parts were touching her belly, and her smooth face turned red like an apple. Pushing Ye Kong apart with all the remaining strength, he shouted, dirty, you know how to tease us. Ye Kong laughed, caught the giggling Huang Zixuan, and said angrily, no more laughs. Swimizu put in the storage ring. At this moment, Deo ran in and said, my son, someone with a blue spirit gate outside is looking for you. I don't have time to meet them, leave them alone, Deo and I will go to Hehuazong. Ye Kong went out with Deo, and outside the cave, a middle-aged firstborn baby was waiting. It seems to be the firstborn elder of Kinglingman, but Ye Kong didn't have time to talk to them, nodded his head, and strode across. Uncle Gu, this kid is just new, why should we give him face? An old man next to the middle-aged man angered. Unz Gu, the head of Kinglingman, scolded, don't talk nonsense, you must look for others. The elder Jadan argued, they are both shaking the Yuzong Yuan. If it were not for him to return, this time they would be pushed out of the high door. Gu Zihao snorted, you still know if it wasn't for him to come back. An ancestor who had just become a Dan could keep the position of the high gate of the Junyuanzong. How much energy is this? I can't see through it. I have lived for so many years. We wait. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 862. Oh, it was Ye Zongju who arrived, please. A scent of incense greeted us. Yitong Zhenjun was really polite. As the Acacia ancestor, Yuan could be so good to people, and he is still an eldest girl. Numbed. Ye Kong is certainly not an ordinary person, he is a hooligan. So he was numb all over. Yitong Zhen is really approachable and amiable, someone laughed. Where, in fact, I also want to see what kind of person Yitong Zhenjun really read countless people. In one sentence he exalted the other party, letting the other party know that you are an important person. I only do this to you, the average person is not possible. Ye Kong was really refreshed,
all a little embarrassed with a smile. It's an honor to let Yi Tong Zhenjun have a high look. That's for sure. Yi Tong Zhenjun laughed intently, and unconsciously took a look at him, exposing the beautiful S-shaped curve, and saw someone drooling. Boy, I knew that you couldn't escape the beauty, and today I asked for it, so I came to seduce Golly, and acted with grace, and had to cover you secretly. Yi Tong thought. Cough. Suddenly there was an untimely cough beside him. It turned out that a certain dragon really couldn't ignore the treacherous couple. Yi Tong Zhenjun was a little annoyed at a dragon's cough. She giggled, and said, "Who is this younger sister? It's so cute, but it's a pity that you have a lung disease. Would you like my sister to treat you?" Although Yi Tong Zhenjun laughed with joy, his words were a little bit more spiteful. Dao wasn't too able to say that at this moment. She was furious, raised her pink powder fist, and said, "The surname is Yi, I want to beat you." Yi Tong laughed loudly. When she felt that the child could have any lethality, he ordered a big fist. "It must not be rude." Ye Kong quickly held Dao. "If the heart is really hit, Yi Tong, you are not necessarily her opponent." Ye Kong introduced again, "This is my sister Long Linger." "Oh, I said that I have such a big temper. I was with your family." Giggling, Yi Tongfeng smiled and led Ye Kong into the room. Yun Fuzong has arranged a residence for each of the sects participating in the meeting, and each patriarch Yuanying also has a separate courtyard. The first peach blossoms in Yitong's small courtyard are in full bloom and pink, and on the stone table in the middle of the courtyard, wine and dishes have been set up. It seems that Yi Tong Zhenjun has been prepared for a long time, and I have no purpose. I said that she was a bit enthusiastic today. It turned out to be a hungman feast. Ye Kong thought about it and asked, "Why? Yi Tong Zhenjun has noble guests." Yi Tong laughed, "Of course, you are not the distinguished guest. I just heard Minghui say that you are coming, and that's why people have to prepare quickly." Ye Kong nodded and said straightly, "It's something that comes and wants Zhenjun to take a shot." Not in a hurry. Yi Tong did not wait for Ye Kong to finish, and pulled him to sit down. "Let's drink and talk. Presumably Ye brothers haven't drank the Acacia sect before me." Dao also sat down by herself. As soon as she took a small nose, Wu Yu's big eyes stared at the hip. "Wow, good wine." Ye Kong laughed, "I haven't really drunk it." "Then try it." Well, Yi Tong smiled with joy, and the models raised the silver jug, filling Ye Kong and himself with a glass. "Ah," Dao said again, reminding her of the existence of this villain. "Oh, this wine is quite powerful, but it treats coughs." Yi Tong wanted to remind him, but he wanted to get the little girl drunk, so that she would never mix it up. "I didn't expect that." Dao wine was very stubborn. Picking up the glass, I poured it into my pink tutu mouth, pouting, milking and milking. "It's delicious." Ye Kong drank in one sip, and could not help but nodded and praised, "The anxiety before Huan is really well deserved, and the nature is like a fire. It goes into the throat and has good wine." "Then drink more." Yi Tong filled them again. After a few cups, Ye Kong was a little surprised, and this hurry was so intoxicating. "You must know that monks like him are not drunk. Obviously, Huan Qian is desperately many times stronger." More importantly, Ye Kong suddenly felt that one of the brothers below looked up uncontrollably. The brain is a bit confused, but the lower half of the body feels particularly clear, which is a very strange feeling. Ye Kong laughed. "I suddenly remembered, outside legend, this hurry cannot drink alone, and must drink with a woman. This is only appropriate." Yi Tong smiled and clapped her hands. At this moment, a row of embroidered shoes came out of the room, and more than 10 beautiful and young women came in. They are all just youths. In the 2nd and 8th years, all of them are different. They are all fat and thin, each has its own advantages. There are tall and short, tall and powerful big horses, and there are small and pleasant young tender girls. The types that men like are basically all done. Choose one. Yi Tong Zhenjun waved and laughed. Ye Kong smiled, put down his glass, and said, "Is this all Acacia brothers?" "That's right, all of my Acacias are unmarried girls, all of them are virgins." "That's fine, in fact, I'm talking about saving people today, and I don't want to marry a wife. Besides, I thought I had too many wives, how could I get in trouble again?" Ye Kong said with a wave of his hand. Yi Tong smiled, knowing that when it was time to talk about the situation, she waved her younger girl and straightened her body. Then she said, "Then talk about saving people. I think Minghui should have told you. This kind of spiritualism is too great. It takes time to repair, and there is even the risk of sky robbery. I vowed never to do that again. Does Lord Ye want me to destroy my vow?" Ye Kong didn't answer well. This really good means of Yitong Zhenjun, people could not answer in one sentence, and prevailed. "Of course, the vow of self-destruction, it's not impossible." Yi Tong pulled it back again, and she took a small wine glass and sneered, and laughed, "It's just that Ye Zhongju is not my Acacia son. I am going to help you with your vow of destruction, so I am afraid there will be rumors outside, so I just picked out some outstanding girl brothers for you to choose. As long as you are involved in my Acacia, I will work for my Acacia, I will not only help you and I will reward you." She was as silky as she finished, showing that the reward was extraordinary. "According to Tong Tong's heart, I don't believe that you will not be obedient." However, someone who has always been very noisy just nodded and said, "Yitong Zhenjun is really a good way to let me join the Acacia sect and serve the Acacia sect. I think if I was a young monk who had just become a Dan, how could Yitong Zhenjun be favored? This boy is not the legend that he can't walk without seeing a woman." Yi Tong saw Ye Kong Mingming, and then he simply said, "If you wanted to join me in the Acacia sect, I would also examine it. But this time is not the past, now you are the target of Kangnan sections." Ye Kong smiled lightly, "Not just because I came back from Kangbei." Yi Tong Zhenjun also smiled and replied, "Not only. Everyone thought that Kangbei is the devil's area except the beast, but after watching your photo beads, everyone just found out that there is still a ground in Kangbei, where there is no magic under the control of people, there are monks, there are all kinds of natural treasures, and there are opportunities to soar." Ye Kong now understands. These guys still have Yunyeo as a good place. If they can go to Yunyeo, hundreds of millions of spirit stones will be obtained, and the rare treasures of Kangnan will also be obtained. It is not a dream to ascend to the immortal realm. It seems that each case wants to know the way to go there first. Hey, really good people can't do it. I kindly let everyone watch the monk soar, but I didn't expect to cause trouble for myself." Ye Kong could not help but sigh. "Good. We each gave 10 million spirits." Yi Tong smiled and said, "So I suggest you join me Acacia, when we share the resources over there. As for the rescue of Huang Zixuan, it's just my hand. Yi Tong's conditions have been opened. To save Huang Zixuan, he must join the Acacia sect and tell them the way to Yunyeo." But Ye Kong shook his head, and said, "I'm sorry, I may disappoint you. Because there is no way or passage to the place called Yunyeo. I was brought by the senior Kuangpeng and flew from Kangming. If you have the ability, you can fly to Kangming to find it." Yi Tong was disappointed, but she still said, "Then you should know the position of Kangming." Ye Kong shook his head. "You haven't been to Kangming, you don't know what's going on there. There is a lot of chaos there, and there are a lot of Kangming beasts, not only without orientation, but also extremely dangerous." Yi Tong was unbelieving, looking cold, and said, "Since that is the case, then I can only say sorry." These old guys really turned their faces almost as if turning around. Since Ye has arrived, he has to be prepared, and there must be something that pleases Yitong Zhenjun. According to Tong Tong's heart, it was nothing more than a spiritual stone or a treasure of heaven and earth, which was no longer attractive to her. She waved her hand without interest and called,
Nana, little, help me off, I'm short. What came out was the little girl Sunana Su who had seen in the jungle of Kangbei. They came out, and said to Emperor Ye a little embarrassedly, Master Ye, please. Ye Kong wasn't bothered, he put down a piece of jade camouflage and said to Yitong's back, the conditions I can give are in jade camouflage. You can tell at a glance that I hope you won't cry and cry for me. Yitong heard the anger. You've just gotten into Dan, just to give you some face, dare you say that to me? Could it be that I dare not catch you for soul hunting? But the scene that followed made her jealous. I do not know when, Deo has picked up the jug on the table and poured the wine directly into the small mouth. This hip flask is also a space weapon, and the Huan in it is anxious. This anxious and fierce anomaly before the Huan, even the monk in the late Yuan Ying can only drink 2 pounds at most. And this little girl in her 10th year drank a pot of wine and looked at her, as if she was still thinking about it. God, is this still a little girl? Even a cow has fallen over. Seeing that Deo was so sturdy, Yi Tong put away his thoughts and dared not make trouble, watching Ye Kong and Deo walk out of the courtyard. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 863. Sunana and Su Xiaoxiao looked at each other, knowing that Master Yi Tong would not help Ye Kong. Xiang Yitong's Xiaowei has long lost interest in what spirit stones and heavenly materials and treasures, and it is estimated that the jade and Cambodia left by Ye Kong will not see it. Outside, Deo blushed and said with a smirk, my son, the wine is really delicious. I have never had such a good drink. Ye Kong laughed. I wasn't expecting you to be a little alcoholic, but you can really drink it. I can't take a few drinks. Deo slaps a loud booze, pats his belly, and asks, so son, did you talk about collapse just now, do we still have a way to save Xian? Ye Kong looked back and said, rest assured, she will come to me, play tricks with Ye Kong, and don't hesitate to ask who. In fact, Ye Kong is still a little annoyed. These heads of Yuan Ying are too self-righteous, they always feel that others are asking for them, and they even set themselves such harsh conditions. After walking a few steps, I heard Deo red face again and said, my son, I have a weird feeling, my body is soft, my belly is hot, it's uncomfortable, and I want to pee. My son, she's in the wine, is it poisonous? Ye Kong fainted, and then remembered the anxiety and the role of Wige. Deo drank so much, he actually reacted. God, isn't this poisoning a teenage girl? It's so shameless. It's okay, in fact, this is a normal reaction to drinking, just go back and meditate for a while, Ye Kong explained. Is that what you did after drinking? Deo asked curiously again. Me? Yeah, well, so too. The two walked all the way back to Dongfu, and the middle-aged young boy and the old man at Kinglingman were still waiting. The two were very patient. Since they gave face in this way, Ye Kong only had a polite attitude. The two have been waiting a long time. I'm really sorry. I was in a hurry just now. Please come in. Leading Gu Zihao into the door, Zhang Wei didn't know Ye Kong's situation, so he had to invite them to sit down. Gu Zihao then explained the intention. It turned out that the Qingling Gate was also aimed at the High Gate. Qingling Gate is a middle gate in the southwest of Kangnan. Originally, Qingling Gate was also one of the high gates in ancient times, but later, because Qingling Gate was relatively single and balanced, the practice was slow and gradually declined. In the end, the high gate position of Qingling Gate was crowded out by Lingxiao Mountain, which made Qingling Gate feel ashamed. So Li Tuzi, after thousands of years, now finally saw the dawn. The ancestor of Yuan Yu royal beast, who was the head of Ling Jishan, died. Many monks in the door were also slaughtered by the immortals. Only one monk in the early days of Yuanying remained. Therefore, Gu Zihao and others felt that it was time to squeeze down Ling Shushan and regain the high gate. Mr. Ye, I wanted to be in Kangbei in ancient times.
My Kinglingman was also one of the 5 major sections. The relationship between you and the Yuan sect is not ordinary. Everyone is a brother section. The mixed Yuan zone is the elder brother. Today, the younger brother came late to see me, but please forgive me. This Gu Zihao was quite capable of pulling out the old friendship of 200,000 years ago. It is also a talent to climb relatives. Ye Kong was not willing to help him. Ye Kong is a nostalgic person. He wanted to fight with him at the beginning of the ancestors of the beast. At the time of his suzerainty ceremony, he also gave a gift, and he didn't apologize to him. You can't turn your face away when the beast is dead, right? Gu Yuanying's words are bad. You are a monk of Yuanying, and I'm just a young monk who has just become a dandan. You call yourself a younger brother, isn't it my life? Please also ask Gu Yuanying to be like this in the future. The younger people really can't stand it. What? Ye Kong's words obviously rejected people thousands of miles away, and the old man beside Gu Zihao was furious. You boy is so unreasonable. We headed Yuanying claiming that his younger brother will give you face, but you act like this. What is it really like when you are? The old man Ren couldn't help but say, yes, Lord, it's better to be a low-key person. When the sun is red, there is a time when the mountain goes down. If the crab crosses, it will go at night. Ye Kong didn't want to talk nonsense with them at all. When the old man was angry, Ye Kong just pulled his face down and ordered the guest to say, are you threatening me? When you came to Yunfuzong, you ran to Yema Dongfu to threaten you. Bold. Yema will not send it? Gu Zihao is dying. How can I bring this old thing out today? Incompetent bungalow. He was about to explain a few words, and a fragrant wind was blowing outside, and Acacia ancestor Yaitong came in. Seeing Ye Kong from a distance, she immediately laughed, Brother Ye, my sister is joking with you, you really are gone. You can't be angry with your sister, huh, you know that you are not angry at a glance. Ye Kong sneered, sister probably doesn't have good eyes, do you think I'm happy now? Yi Tong was hard-spoken by him, but he didn't dare to be angry, and still laughed, that sister didn't pay you to come, and said, if you want your sister, you will be what you want. This sentence is rather ambiguous. Behind Yu Minghui felt that he was going to faint. Just now Yi Tong called him and Wei Yang insulting, but who knows half of it. She picked up Jade Cambodia on the table, and her face suddenly changed color. Yu Minghui and Wei Yang were really curious. What exactly was in Jade and Cambodia that could make their masters so disoriented? Gu Zihao stared fiercely at the opponent. Did you see it? This Ye sovereign is not an ordinary person. He Huanzong's head babies all went to catch up with him. He didn't give face yet. And the old man couldn't help but be annoyed. Ma, what's the matter? The UN babies are all busy composing to an ancestor who has just become a Dan. Are these UN babies crazy? Ye Kong still needs Yaitong's help, and he no longer pulls his face and smiles, although I'm angry, I'm not angry with my sister. Yi Tong immediately realized that and turned back to anger. Gu Zihao, wouldn't your Qingling gate want to fall into the door? Gu Zihao was frightened, and hurriedly said, misunderstanding, it is just my nonsense, and I will come to Lord Ye someday. Okay, let's go. Ye Kong waved back the Kinglingman and waited. Only Ye Kong and Acacia were left in the room. As soon as the room was quiet, Yi Tong laughed, Mr. Ye, is there a quiet room? Yes, please here. The two left, leaving everyone to stay. Yu Minghui said, this boy is really strong, master has never been related to the life of the ancestors, even if the ancestors, there is no one with her for more than 100 years, can't wait to see today. However, Zhang Wei and Bai Jie had a hard time in their hearts. It seems that this beautiful boy scheme has really become, but for Huang Zixuan, let's forget it, Ren. But apparently, the two were not what they thought. After a while, the two came out happily and saw that they were still very satisfied. When outsiders all left, it was getting dark, and it was evening time. Zhang Wei asked quickly, how? Yekongdao said, Yi Tong Zhenjun promised me that this matter would be left to her, including asking Qi Xingzong Tan Qinghuai to come up with her, and ensure that a lively Huang Zixuan appeared in front of us. Great, Zhang Wei and Bai Ji both cried. Ye Kong said again, all we have to do is go back to the corpse Yinzong and pick a suitable body for Xian. At this moment, Cao Muse happened to walk outside the hall. Although Ye Kong's words stabbed her, she thought about it, thinking that Ye Kong was just a joke, not intentional. Besides, she also remembered Huang Zixuan in her heart, so she quickly came over when Yi Tong left. When Ye Kong was absent, Cao Muse often came over, so there were also Yufu entering the door. After walking through the small orchard and outside the hall, I heard the good news. Cao Muse was overjoyed when she heard the news, but when she just wanted to step up, she heard an abnormal voice inside. Bad, what are you doing? We have to go to the dead yin section, Zhang Wei shouted in shame. Someone shouted shamelessly, Yi Tong Zhenjun helped me to talk to the old guy who fell into the sky. The flesh must be prepared. It can't be that fast, let's do the business first, asterisk. Drink a few glasses of Huan anxious, I was hooked by Yi Tong's woman for a long time. Really, it's impossible to be a buddy? Zhang Wei giggled, well, seeing that you successfully rescued Xian, and resisted the temptation of Yi Tong's old woman, this girl allowed you. Bai Ji's voice came out again, then I will go back to the room to see Long linger. Cao Muse was startled and just wanted to run away, but she heard Ye Kong said, it's okay, that girl drank too much, just rest for a night, Sister Ji you also leave, Wei, you have no opinion. I don't know why, Cao Muse thought that in the hope that Wu Yi had no opinion, so that Bai Ji could listen to it for a while. Zhang Wei's voice didn't come out, it was estimated that he nodded. Then Cao Muse heard that the room was quiet, and there was a snoring sound in the middle. After a while, Bai Ji begged a soft cry, don't. Or Zhang Wei suddenly made a crisp sound. Laughed and scolded, Norse. Cao Muse is also the one who comes here, of course. When I hear this voice, I understand what's going on inside. She hated her lover for not being ashamed with the kid in the living room, and she also hated Bai Ji for participating in such absurd behavior, and she hated someone for playing such a shamelessly with one man and two women. It was herself who hated it. When she heard such a voice, her legs were soft and she couldn't move. She wanted to listen for a while. Then, a loud noise came from inside, startling Cao Muse, who was full of attention, but the laughter and scolding of little Pepper soon came out, you hooligan, don't be on the big table. Cao Muse felt that her breathing had worsened. Before a while, she was still sitting by the big sandalwood table, and now they are at the big table, it is really shameless. Then, with Ye Kong's low complaint, martial arts, I miss you so much at the same time, Zhang Wei's depressive humming from the depth of his throat. Oh came, Cao Muse felt like a snow lion, and she was going to melt outside the gate. The ancestors of Jidan can be put out, but Ye Kong is also the ancestor of Jidan. If Cao Muse releases his consciousness he will probably be revealed by Ye Kong. But Cao Muse's reason at this moment has almost been drowned by that tide, and there is only one thought in her heart to take a look at it, just one glance.